Welcome. This is what is going on the Sun today, the 18th of May 2011. On this day, exactly 101 years ago, the Earth passed through the tail of Halley's Comet. And we are still here to tell the tale, if you forgive the pun. Let's first take a look at the sunspot groups and see what's been going on in the last 24 hours. Region 1208 is just visible on the west limb and will be gone by tomorrow. Region 1216 remains a single large spot, and there's a small region just coming over the east limb that hasn't been numbered yet. They've split region 1214 into two regions now, 1214 and a newly numbered 1217, which again goes to show how useless sunspot number is for measuring levels of activity. As 1214 has been counted as a single region to date, that means our sunspot number has been out by a factor of 20% for the last several days. So never rely on sunspot number as a measure of the level of solar activity. Next, let's take a look at the evolution of these regions using the Solar Dynamics Observatory Heliomagnetic Imager. In the white light movie there doesn't seem to be a great deal going on. The most interesting area is region 1214, 1217. If you look at the magnetic movie you can see why they've split region 1214 into two regions. The leading polarity is indicated by white and the following polarity by black. So you have leader, follower, which would indicate that there are two regions. At least in the southern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere it's reversed. Let's just quickly check what flares there have been in the last 24 hours using the GOES XRS data, and we see there's been very little activity. We just have had a few minor B flares, so solar activity has been very quiet. So let's see if we can determine which region or region has been contributing to what little activity we have seen. For that we turn to the coronal movies and the SDO AIA instrument. From the movie we can clearly see that region 1214, 1217 has been the most active, so it is most likely most of these B flares have come from there. The Helium 304 movie doesn't show very much activity in terms of filament eruptions, so we should not expect any major coronal mass ejections today. So let's check that conclusion by looking at the SOHO coronagraph data. Let's first look at the Large Field of View C3 instrument, and we'll see the remnants of the coronal mass ejections that we talked about yesterday. In the smaller field of view of the C2 instrument we don't seem to see any major eruptions today. The ACE instrument shows what's happening to the solar wind that is about to strike the Earth. We can see here that the density has increased somewhat while the velocity has fallen. That means that the high-speed stream from the coronal hole that has been affecting us for the last few days has probably swept past the Earth and we're in a much more normal low-speed flow. From the NOAA 15 data we see that the auroral zone is much more quiet, as is the KP index. In summary then, the sunspot number has dropped to 57, the X-ray background remains at B2, radio sun flux has dropped to 92 solar flux units, the solar wind speed has dropped to 480 km per second, while the density has gone up to 1.4 protons per cubic centimetre, and the KP index has been varying between 1 and 3, which is rated as quiet. So my forecast for the next 24 hours is that C flares are still possible, but we have a very low probability of getting an M or an X flare. The sunspot number may well drop lower, coronal mass ejections remain likely, but the chances of a major geomagnetic storm are low. From the composite stereo and SDO data we can see that there are a few regions 2 or 3 days behind the east limb, but none of them look particularly bright or powerful, so when they return I'm not expecting a great deal of an increase in activity from them. The rotation period of the Sun is approximately 27 days, so you might find it interesting to go back to the forecast from 27 days ago and compare what was going on then and see what the overall trend in solar activity has been. Here I compare the composite images from the last rotation with this rotation. The overall impression is that the regions were much more active and bright last rotation, so it seems that solar activity has dropped somewhat since then. However, I think the interesting thing to note here is how much the southern hemisphere has filled in. If you remember correctly, I was talking about how dominant the northern hemisphere has been. Are all these new regions in the south heralding the onset of major activity in the southern hemisphere? Only time will tell, but it looks like a promising sign. If you want more details, follow some of the links in the description box below. You can see earlier editions of The Sun Today if you log on to my channel, and there are some excellent NOAA and NASA sites that you might find interesting. So that's it for today. Keep safe. Bye for now.